It's the Brad and John Show.
Brad and John Show. Today is June 3rd. This is B Block, which means we start right around 7:20. The reason I mention that is because a lot of people listen to the show in the future, and it gives them good reference as to what we're talking about this particular date. Okay, we ended the A Block, John, with my cliffhanger about the senior property tax lock-in. And when was that? Was that a couple years ago through the legislature? Did they put that through?
Yeah, I think the original bill, and it required a cleanup. I believe the original bill might have passed in the 2023 session, and then it was cleaned up in the 2024 session, I believe.
Okay, and essentially the synopsis is, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, is that senior citizens, is it over the age of 60? Do you know the year, the age?
I don't know the age, Brad.
Well, some age. We'll find that out. If you live in a home or a condo, you can apply to the county that you're in. You have to apply. It's not automatic. You have to apply to the county that you're in that would essentially freeze your property tax rates at a particular year. And I think the goofy thing is now what they're doing is if I'm not mistaken, they'll freeze it at next year's rates. In other words, they're going to go up again. Okay. Do you want my story that was relayed to me by a senior?
And this is a secondhand story, right? So this didn't happen to you, but somebody told you this version of events.
Well, this is someone, actually, it's sort of interesting because I've now heard the same thing twice.
Okay, go ahead.
First off, you have to jump through hoops online and stuff like that. And in St. Louis County, you have to get an appointment, okay? You can't, in other words, you have to go face to face with somebody. And in this particular instance, this person that I know lives in West County, probably not too far from you, John. And their appointment was at the West County Satellite Government Office. You know where that's at, right?
I do know, yep.
It's on Clarkson Road. Clarkson, what would you say? Clarkson near Kerrs Mill? Would that be a problem?
And Kerrs Mill. Kerrs Mill, yep.
Okay. It's in a shopping center, okay? So this person tells me that they show up at the office and the door's locked. And there are people standing outside, and they say to this person, they won't let you inside until it's your turn. So they literally leave you outside in the parking lot until it's your turn. And then somebody opens the door and says, Joe Smith, and Joe Smith walks in, and then they lock the door behind them. Okay, John, I'm sorry, but these are senior citizens. Let's say they have an appointment on July 2nd. When it's 100 degrees, or let's say they have an appointment on January 4th where it's minus 100 degrees. What are they doing? I mean, John, if you had an appointment at your doctor's office and you showed up at your doctor's office and the door was locked and somebody opened up the door and says, Mr. Combest, you have to wait in your parking lot and near your car and we'll text you when it's time for you to come in. Would you find a new doctor?
No, I'd use that time to smoke my drive-through cannabis. And also, at a St. Louis County satellite office, if it was large and palatial, the Brad Hildebrands of the world would say, can you believe how much money they're spending for what? It's office space they don't even use half of it.
John, I'm not saying...
So two old people that complained about having to wait a few extra minutes outside in a parking lot and then shuffle in their obesity scooter or with their cane and then sit down and complain about how they don't understand assessment math. Okay, so we got the check-in session, so go from there.
But it's making you jump through hoops and if you don't do it, guess what? Your property taxes keep going up, no matter how old you are.
That's an outrage.
See,
what's a better alternative, Brad?
You know what? The interesting thing is, you know who actually wrote this legislation?
Who's that?
What's that guy's name? Who's the county executive out there, the county commissioner in Franklin County?
I think you can remember it, Brad.
What's his name?
I think you can access it, Brad. Your kayfabe birthday's tomorrow. You're going to be 90 in your kayfabe birthday.
Mr. Underground Cable Dude. What's his name again, John?
What's his name, Brad?
What's his name?
I don't know, Brad. You know what? I'm almost 90 years old. I don't remember things like I used to.
Okay, John. It's to the point where... Why do you make things difficult for people when it involves cutting your taxes? Why?
Because you want to discourage people from putting your employees through more time where they quibble about what it is. So make it an onerous process, and then fewer people will complain about it.
Okay, John, here's Brad's suggestion. Okay, if you're an old person and you live in one of the counties, and you live in one of the counties.
If you're an old person, you leave your phone on, and then listeners text John and say, does Brad really leave his phone on when he's on the air?
I do.
And I say, yeah. Remember, the radio stations are just a hobby for them. It's not a professional thing. Go ahead, Brad. If you're an old person.
Okay, John, thanks. If you're an old person, okay, and you want to freeze your property tax, you essentially go online and there's a form that says, I am, and then you fill in, age, and I would like to freeze my property taxes at an address. And then it says, sign below and include a copy of your birth certificate. So you take your birth certificate and you make a copy of it and you send it to the state or the county, and they go, oh, it's Joe Smith. He lives at 1234 Mockingbird Lane. He's 82 years old. We'll freeze his property taxes. Done. You know what I'm saying? Done. And it's done. Why can't they be like that?
Well, now, have you made this suggestion to county government?
John, come on. I make suggestions.
So you'd rather complain, rather than actually suggest this to one of your elected officials, you'd rather just complain about it?
Should I call Mike Elam and ask him about this?
Yeah, waste his time. And actually then bug him about radio advertising too.
He's running for office. Hopefully he'll spend some money with me. See, John, this is why people get frustrated with government, okay? Because of the fact that if government ran like a private business, they would be out of business because nobody would put up with this. I mean, for example, let's go back to the old days of Blockbuster video, okay? And young John Combest decides he wants to go rent a VHS movie at Blockbuster. And you go and the door's locked. And you go and you sort of jiggle the door and somebody comes and unlocks the door. Hey, you have to wait outside in the parking lot. We only let one person in the store at a time. Sit out there by your car and we're ready to come in and take a look at a video. You can come in. Guess what? You would be not sitting in your car. You would be driving in your car away from Blockbuster Video, right?
You're right. I would go right next door off Parker Road to the Shop and Save Plaza,
right?
And I'd rent my video there. I wouldn't wait at Blockbuster.
Okay, let's use one of your favorite places. John pulls up to Chick-fil-A, and he's in the drive-thru, and the instead of the person coming up to you and going like, "Hi, sir, how can I serve you today?" They go, "Yeah, bud, what do you want?" And you go, "Well, I want that number one thing. I want the 3 chicken strips and the crisscross French fries and a Diet Coke."
Yeah, I'm not an oinker, so I don't order that. But I get your point. Yeah,
sir. You know what? Go park in the parking lot, and when we feel like giving you your number one, we'll come over and stick a little sticker on your window, and you can go through the drive-thru then. Okay? Guess what? And when you would say, well, that's not very good service, and they would look at you and they go, my pleasure. Because
they are trained to say it.
Right.
So your point, Brad, I think we've had enough of the analogy. Your point is that because it's government, they're not subjected to the same common sense laws of private enterprise.
Well, but see, people complain about government, like, for example, let's say Ricky Schroer, got a bad service at some, bad service at some restaurant. He would like a terrible service. But if Ricky Schroer, had bad service at the DMV, he'd go like, oh, they're just government employees doing
absolutely not.
Doing the
I
best
think Nick
they can.
Schroer would definitely make a point about it. I think he's definitely outspoken on behalf of his constituents.
No,
I think he would definitely make a point about it.
He would say, hey, if you don't watch it, I'm going to make you live in an old person's basement. That's what I'm going to make you do. So
this is another great example of if Nick Schroer years ago had tossed a piddly $500 or $1,000 to Brad Hildebrand, you would never criticize him.
Not the case. Okay.
That's absolutely the case.
Okay.
And you had something that you were going to talk about.
Yeah, a bunch of things. Okay, I actually do show prep for this show. You don't think I do?
You didn't yesterday, so I'm glad you did today, Brad.
I had a bunch of
Yesterday
stuff.
You got to me and said, is there anything you want to talk about? And I was like, oh, maybe Brad's mailing it in on the show too.
I'm trying to be, what's the term? Cooperative. I'm trying to be, no, what's the big government term? I'm trying to be.
You're trying to include stakeholders.
I'm trying. Well, no, not that. I'm trying to be
inclusive.
Inclusive. There you go.
Inclusive.
I'm trying to be inclusive. Okay. Here's a good one. I've seen this story a couple times yesterday. The Washington Post ran a story asking, why is the amount of fentanyl in the United States, the amount of illegal fentanyl getting in much less? We can't figure that out. That's the story in the Washington Post. Think about that. For a matter of fact, they use the word mysterious drop in fentanyl crossing the border. Why is that so mysterious, John? John, can you think of why the fentanyl...
To quote Sarah McLachlan, it doesn't seem like they're building a mystery. It would seem as if you shut off the spigot of illegals sneaking across the border, or in some cases just walking across the border, you might have a lesser amount of fentanyl coming in.
Duh!
Yeah, amazing.
The lead paragraph in the story is, the Washington Post is being mocked online by the White House for pathetic reporting on what the liberal-leaning news outlet calls a mysterious decline in fentanyl flowing across the southern border. Duh! I mean, it's to the point where it's like, when you see things like that, you go like, I mean, this is why I have essentially decided that one of these days I'm going to go back to SIU Edwardsville and go back to Lindenwood and turn in my stupid journalism degrees, because of the fact that they are useless now. Nobody cares. Nobody uses them. Nobody does anything. It's to the point where, hold on a minute, I just got a power failure. Oh, damn it. The power went out at Westplex 107. Jeez. Okay, no, it just came back on. Okay. It was off for 9 seconds. How's that? Okay, I'm sorry, John. I just had to do that. Okay, you see what I'm saying with that story?
Yeah, I do see. Yeah, I don't see why it's quite a mystery, but I think to most people it would be pretty apparent.
Okay, there's also a story in the Post-Dispatch this morning that, I don't know if you saw this or not. The brother of a guy who was killed a year ago yesterday at a gas station in North City shows up at the gas station with signs and stuffs like that, and essentially this is actually on STLPR and also STLtoday.com.
And he wants to have the gas station shut down.
Yes. Okay, and it's called Crown Food Mart. Okay, I know exactly where this is. This is on North Kings Highway. Been by it many times. I'm not afraid to drive in that neighborhood. I was by this station, I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago. You're probably saying, Brad, what were you doing in that neighborhood? John, I am a non-discriminatory kind of guy. I drive around in North County. I drive around in North City. I've never been shot yet. I've never had my car jacked yet.
You can go a lot of places when you're not out selling advertising. Go ahead, Brad.
Some people go to, like bungee jumping places. Some people go to like thrill-seeking things. Some people ride the Screaming Eagle Six Flags. I drive in interesting neighborhoods. Okay, what's interesting about this story is, in both coverages, there's a quote in there that this guy essentially says. He says his name is Gerald Christmas. His brother John Christmas. What a name! I'd love to have a name like that.
Yeah, Gerald Christmas. I didn't know that it was Gerald that did this. I mean, he's a prominent city guy. Go ahead.
Right. Gerald Christmas stood outside the station on Monday, chanting into a megaphone, "Shut them down," and encouraging customers driving into the parking lot to shop elsewhere. Now, Christmas was telling customers to drive down the street to a black-owned BP station rather than supporting the Phillips 66 station. If I'm not mistaken, the Phillips 66 station is owned by some owners of Arab descent. Okay? So Isn't he being racial? Isn't he essentially saying, hey, don't shop here, go down the street to a black-owned station?
Yeah, but it's okay because he's black.
Is that really the case? It's okay because he's black?
Yeah, those are the rules, Brad.
Okay, so
you can tell people not to support white businesses or not support Asian businesses or any other minority. At the top of that food chain are black folks. So you couldn't say, hey, shop white, but you can definitely say shop black.
So if I were to go to the black-owned BP station on North Kings Highway and get out my megaphone and say, don't shop here, it's a black-owned station, go up the street to the Crown Food Mart because those dudes aren't black, they're like, what do they call them, brown or whatever? I don't know what you call them. Is that what you call the Arabs?
Yeah, some kind of minority, whatever you want to call them, Middle Eastern descent, whatever you want to call it.
How long do you think would be until I had a couple 9mm slugs in me? You know what I mean?
It wouldn't be long enough. Right. But I mean, you're not surprised by this. You know the rules.
See, to me, the hypocrisy of this is just mind-boggling. It just boggles my mind that, and you know what, you read the story and people go, yeah, okay, whatever. But as we call it, the Tony Colombo flip test, do the flip test. And this would be the number one story on the Post-Dispatch, the number one story on STLPR. white person stands in black-owned gas stationing, telling people to not patronize a black-owned business and go to a white-owned business instead. I don't get it. I mean, why can't?
Yeah. I mean, I just think that. I mean, I think normal people, Brad, accept that you can tell folks to not support white businesses or not support Asian businesses, and that's okay because white people are so entitled and have had it so good for so long. And, Asians have never faced any discrimination ever. Well, so we should definitely take it out on white people and on Asians. And now Middle Eastern folks too, that are successful business people. We should definitely suggest that people not shop there because of their skin color.
How about the poor Jewish people, that young Jewish couple that gets gunned down in D.C., and then over the weekend, that nutbag who's in the country illegally goes and sets those Jewish people on fire? I mean, to the point where I'm going like, okay, this is enough. This is enough. And the interesting point of this is, with the case with the guy, he's from Egypt or something like that, the guy in Boulder, Colorado, he's from Egypt, and he came here, got a visa or something like that, and then got an extension on his visa, and it expired. He's here illegally, okay? People are going to Tom Homan, oh, he's such a terrible person. He's kicking these people out of the country. They're just here to make a better life. Well, some of them are, some of them aren't. And the point being is, there's a rule. The rule states that if you are a immigrant in the United States, you have to have some kind of legal status, green card, special visa, H-1B, whatever the heck it is. If you're not, guess what? We kick you out. You go to another place. Okay, remember there's stories about this, I don't know where this is at, someplace on one of the countries that borders China, and every once in a while, these people go hiking, and they unknowingly cross the border into China, and
what happens, Brad?
They get thrown in jail, and we have to make this diplomatic, entourage show up in Beijing. Please let our citizens out. Please let them out. I mean, does America have, hey, we're saps, come on in, written on our forehead? Is that what it said? That's what it is?
I think so, but maybe things are changing, Brad. Maybe things will change. I don't know.
It always cracks me up that we have the government, in D.C., we have, when the Democrats were in charge, they're saying, oh, we don't need a fence on the border. A border fence is such a terrible thing. But what did they do after January 6th? They put up a huge, monstrous fence, okay? And the White House, once upon a time, you could walk on the lawn at the White House. John, you know why you can't walk on the lawn at the White House anymore?
Why is that?
Because there's a big old fence there.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Right. So why is a fence around the Capitol building and a fence around the White House okay, but a fence on the border is not? John, can you answer that for me?
I can, because they wanted to set an example for St. Louis Pride Fest, which has now erected a 6-foot fence, and to keep people from sneaking in, but really for the protection of the LGBTQIA alphabet community, Brad. They wanted to set a good example, they being the White House.
Yeah, okay, John. Okay.